What is up, Viking fans? Welcome to the Purple People Podcast. It is Monday, January 23rd of 2023.
National Pie Day.
Oh, it is.
P-I-E, not P-I.
Oh, too bad. I love the other pie more. Said nobody ever. What's your favorite pies, boys?
Strawberry rhubarb.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Adam strikes me as a pecan guy. Oh,
I think Adam froze up. Oh man.
You froze him from strawberry rhubarb.
he's shocked.
I'm classic. I do enjoy sweet potato pie every once in a while, but I love an apple pie. I will eat an entire apple pie myself. And if no one brings it for Thanksgiving or Christmas, I've got one in the car always.
Charlotte says pumpkin pie, and I agree. A good homemade pumpkin pie is difficult to beat.
What's up, Cliff? What's up, Charlotte? Thank y'all. We were talking about some hot, sensitive topics on the way into the show, and we might talk about that. So Adam's having technical difficulties. He's texting on the side. So when he hops in, we'll add him. This is episode 510 of the Purple People Podcast. I named this one Ed Gone-atello in poor taste.
You get a clap for that one. Bravo, sir. That's some good shit.
We try to do puns. Mine are terrible. Adam is the whiz with that. But man, the Vikings did it after that loss to the Giants. I think 2 days later. What's up, Jonathan? Welcome into. The Vikings fired defensive coordinator Ed Gone-atello, an historically bad season for the defense. 3 years in a row with two different coordinators and coaches, GMs. This is an issue for this team, and Kyle's going to lead the way, and I'm going to set him up an alley-oop, but we are going to lose quite a few of those defensive players we've all loved, and we still love, and we wish them well, but yeah, the Vikings are going to look a lot different on defense this season, and take it away, man. Who do you think we're getting rid of?
Well, my main point with this is that we have had, over the course of 2 years, two different coordinators with two drastically different philosophies. So Mike Zimmer was basically your de facto coordinator last year. Ed Gone-atello this year. 4-3-3-4. You know, we know the changes that were implemented. And we had, by and large, the same results. And they were bad. It was bad last year. It was really bad this year. So at this point, you really have to look at the player and the personnel on this roster. And you got to say there's going to be some turnover. And there's going to be some players that are some fan favorites that have been here for a while. You might have their jerseys in your closet. I think we're going to see them go. And we're talking about, I think, Eric Kendricks is one that's going to be out. I do think you probably still hold on to Harrison Smith. I think you try to hold on to Danielle Hunter, although that is an interesting question. And I think that is a really important question during this interview process. Because I guess I don't necessarily care so much what scheme we're bringing in. I want to know, pretend you're you are my defensive coordinator here, Kyle Smith.
Okay,
so I'm going to interview you, and I am going to say, how are you going to use the players that we currently have on this roster? How are you going to maximize Harrison Smith and Danielle Hunter? Because I don't care what system you run. I want to know how you are going to make those guys better.
Exactly. If I was in those shoes, first you've got to take accountability. Once we look at the cap and everything, we've got to understand. One of the things I would look at, I know these guys have somebody who does it for them because they don't do the very minute details. I want to look at the average age of this defense and say, if we're going to make a run, we have to have bona fide pieces. See the Buffalo Bills. Before Von Miller got hurt, they were like 3 in pressure rates. They were unreal. He left, and it changed everything. And it's really, I don't know, it's really hard. A lot of things that we've seen in the past with this team are, this is the system, adjust to the system. Now we've got coaches who were like, oh, okay, I'm going to adjust to the players and see how well they're doing. What I hated, which is what most of you hated this year, number one, there was no pressure. Pressure can come in different ways. If you're only running 3 linemen and then you've got a couple of backers in there, you can do pressure different ways. But the thing that I personally didn't like, and I know a lot of you didn't, was there wasn't a lot of pressure. But to your point, Kyle, and to echo this and wrap up my kind of story to start for a baseline, is the same number of people have been here since like 2016, 2015. And it's Father Time is always going to win. It just sucks because it's probably one of those things where you would like to add depth every year and slowly transition to where it slowly fades in and out. But I feel like this offseason is going to be an abrupt change to a lot of the personnel, especially
you're not
going to
get any worse.
Yeah, you can only go down one spot compared to where we were. So
right, how many games did they give up? 400 some yards this season.
It was a lot, yeah. A lot per game. And the thing is, too, just another point really quick is the coaching that has to change here is the way that you play. Their mindset was wonderful this year, was go make a play. And a lot of luck happened that didn't go our way 2 years prior. Making some plays in key situations, getting key turnovers. They were great in turnovers. But let's just take the secondary, for example. I don't want the secondary playing 11 yards off of every receiver. You got to play a little more man. You got to do a little bit more pressure. I don't know if these players aren't that good. I know the drafts in previous years at the end of the Spielman regime weren't the best. But they've got a lot of questions, and I want everyone to take in this season. And even though it ended abruptly and we lost to the Giants of all the teams, you better be happy and keep the happiness as long as you can. Because I'm telling you now, going forward, I don't think we win 13 games next year.
So right now, the projected starters for next year at corner would probably be what, Dantzler and Booth?
Yeah, assuming if Patrick Peterson comes back, which I think he will. And that's just
right
one
now
position group.
He's a free agent, and Duke Shelley's a free agent. Chandon Sullivan, free agent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people to bring back. I will give you guys an update if you didn't see. 44 minutes ago on the Vikings Instagram account, a defensive coordinator candidate was interviewed. Ryan Nielsen. He is the Saints co-defensive coordinator and defensive lineman coach. So he is interviewed. The Vikings have requested a popular name in Brian Flores, the former Miami Dolphins head coach, and
he's already taking other interviews, so that's not a great sign.
He's getting head coach offers for places like Arizona. So
right, and so you would like to have him as your defensive coordinator, but it's also, and I know we as fans rush the offseason quite a bit on wanting to get the ball rolling, but how long do you wait around for him to have him take maybe this Arizona job or some other job, and then you've potentially missed out on your second or third option for coordinator, defensive coordinator. So that's a game that you got to play a little bit too.
Well, the other point to that too, Kyle, is Brian Flores was a head coach who had success. If he comes to the Vikings, I give him 1 year and he'll go get a head coaching job. So you want to see if you can get a guy who say, hey, I want to see what we can do for 2 or 3 years. Obviously, I'll give you your opportunities, but
it was like the revolving door. The Vikings had an offensive coordinator. I mean, they didn't have one for consecutive years for a while.
Right. And I don't necessarily think you turn down a candidate because, he might be 1 year and then, scoot off to a head coach position.
No, you definitely hire the best candidate possible.
Sure. Right. So that's not a bad thing, but that is a situation, like you were saying, Adam. You don't necessarily want to get into this every year. We're looking for a new D coordinator spot.
Because you want to form an identity. I think that's what it is. You want to form an identity, and you want to get that core to kind of do the reset.
Yeah.
But it's hard for us to know from the outside looking in. Was this a scheme issue? Was it a personnel scheme or a personnel issue? Was it a play calling? Was it an execution issue? Where did this defense go wrong?
I gotta blame coaching a lot on that. You have enough good players, and we've said it all. If the yardage per game was so much, and we saw it in certain games towards the end of the year when the Vikings started to bring pressure, we were having flashbacks of like, oh, this is what the 15th ranked defense in the NFL could have looked like had we done
one of my favorite Vikings had arguably the worst season of his career. Eric Kendricks struggled so bad this year.
It was so hard to watch.
I think Kendricks is potentially done in Minnesota.
I want to give a shout out here too. Cliff says his wife loves us. We appreciate both of you. Nicole, thank you for chiming in. Viking Jerome, what's up, dude? Appreciate you coming in. Jonathan says hopes that Duke Shelley comes back. I really like him.
He will. They will resign
They'll
him.
do what they can to bring him back, but
Yeah.
he, based on the splash plays we saw, and especially how they came in some key moments, it wouldn't be surprising to see other teams want to show some interest in him.
Sure.
And if I'm him coming from the Bears and the Vikings and making these, you take the money and run. You'll go play for Houston if they throw a bag at you. So I don't blame him. Another interesting point here. We'll talk more about the defense. Cliff's wife Nicole says, "I'm a huge Kirk fan. Even though he gets a bad rap, I'm ready for another season of Kirk O'Chains." I'll be the first one to say it. I don't care what your stats are. I just want to watch you on film and during the games. I want to watch you make plays. Kirk made
the Vikings can win with Kirk.
Yeah, that he made so many good throws this year with terrible pressure in his face, and I like this Kirk because Kevin O'Connell likes him, and he brought out a different side of him. I'm with you, Nicole.
We're not like those guys at Score North who try to find any reason to ship Kirk out of town.
No.
Oh, the new thing around Twitter, if you guys haven't been on the last 2 days, is apparently the Vikings are trading for Trey Lance from San Francisco. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so.
No.
You're going to have it at the worst and the minimum.
Nick Mullins back. Did you know he completed 21 of his 25 passes this season?
Ooh.
There you go.
Way to go, Nick. Good for you.
Competition. QB controversy. I'm kidding.
But it's nice to have a relevant, competent quarterback back there, even though Kirk doesn't really miss time.
That's another underrated thing about him. He never gets hurt. Cliff says trade draft picks for Leslie Frazier. I'm going to go ahead and pass on that. I'm always yelling at Score North. I don't even watch them. I muted them on Twitter. It's the best thing in the world. I don't block them. I don't give them the satisfaction. I'll never see what you say.
Isn't it weird though, looking at the playoff picture and seeing Josh Allen out and Justin Herbert out? All these young promising quarterbacks that people were saying are the future. I understand, Burrow and Mahomes ain't going anywhere.
Well, that's where I was going with it. I'm not as surprised as the Bengals are back in it, and I thought maybe they had a little luck last year. There's comps out there now, and I'm starting to see it, especially if he beats Mahomes and the Chiefs again, of Joe Burrow's got a little bit of Tom Brady in him. And I'm like, this dude, he's legit. And what I loved, I heard this today, Joe Burrow said, I'm not the number one at anything, but I'm great at everything. And I 100% agree with that. He doesn't have the arm that Allen's and Mahomes.
And then on the other side, you got Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts, which is
a
lot of young quarterbacks going on here.
I love it. It's
two different styles compared to each other. It's going to be a fun championship weekend.
You go back a couple years, and I know a lot of football fans were just saying, man, I'm tired of seeing Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees and the old guard, constantly at the top of the playoffs. And we've got that shift where it's all younger, more exciting.
And now Kirk's the wrong side of that because he's turning 35 this year?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yep.
If we could get Purdy, I might not argue. I don't think San Francisco is going off that kid, regardless of how the season ends.
Yeah, they'd be stupid. They would be absolutely stupid.
I just had to put that comment up so Kyle could have some kind of Iowa love in the chat there.
Iowa State.
It's going to be the Lance or Jimmy G that gets moved, I bet.
Yeah, I could see that.
You'd have to imagine Jimmy.
Because there are so many teams out there looking for a quarterback right now. That'd be silly not to take whatever haul gets thrown your way.
Yeah.
I'm on the Viking Age. I'm trying to read this out really quick. This was from Adam Patrick a few days ago. Our own Adam Carlson writes for that website too. You should check it out. But this is, and I'll read it really fast, the statement from Kevin O'Connell last week. He says, today I informed Ed Donatel we will be going in a different direction at defensive coordinator in 2023. While this was a difficult decision because of the tremendous respect I have for Ed as a person and a coach, I believe it is the right move for the future of our football team. I want to thank Ed for his commitment to the Vikings, for the positive impact. We all wish Ed and his wife, Sherry, only the best in the future. We will immediately begin our search to fill this critical role because they want to continue to build a championship standard is what Head coach Kevin O'Connell said. So he says all the right things. Very classy statement.
Also, don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out.
And yet the media is mad because they didn't fire him at the press conference. You know, they didn't give them the opportunity to ask
Such a
questions.
good
about the firing.
transition, Adam. Such a good transition. We got to go. We got to talk about that. I've never in the history of watching the NFL during my lifetime seen a press conference where like, hey, we're going to drop this bomb. Rob, you here? Fuck you, you're fired. They're not going to do that. The media members are so spoiled, and the arrogance and the ego of some of these people on Twitter to be like, yeah, that was somebody called Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi cowardly because they wouldn't take questions or they did it after they were allowed questions.
And hey, like I said on Twitter, would we have learned absolutely anything different with Chris Tomlinson sitting up there asking 10 of the stupidest questions you've ever heard about Ed Gone-atello being fired during that press conference? No, we wouldn't have.
Why couldn't they have asked, what are you going to be looking for in a defensive coordinator in 23? Why couldn't they have asked that without knowing that he's probably going to get fired? You can still ask your questions.
It's just frustrating because the entitlement that was there on some of these people on social media is, first of all, you're owed nothing from this organization. Just because you write about them, that doesn't mean that they owe you anything. This coach can go about his business how he pleases, and he did it in a very classy way. And guess what? The Vikings are out of the postseason now. You'll have literally the whole first half of the year to talk about and talk to this person whenever they get there. So we just have to throw that out there too. Some of these like Twitter media people for the Vikings or write about the Vikings, chill out. You are not that special. You're not that important, and you can wait. Don't call the coach cowardly and the GM cowardly because you want to pull your ears and stomp like a little kid in the supermarket. You look really stupid doing that.
You know, it's fun to know what the team is doing and what direction they're headed in, but I also don't think we as fans need like a minute by minute breakdown of what they're doing. And it's like, just give us the broad strokes of what's going on, and when you hire someone, I'll be excited about it then. But I don't need to know every single detail, every single decision that goes on behind the scenes.
Right. Well, the thing that I don't know if they're going to do this within the staff, the new staff that's there. Remember, Mike Zimmer and his late son Adam worked together, and there was a lot of promoting within. I don't know if they're going to look at candidates within, but I like that they've outwardly said we are looking at Brian Flores, we are looking at Ryan Nielsen. They've already got an idea of the kind of identity of a defense they want. So,
and they have Mike Pettin on staff.
Yeah, I hope they don't promote him. I don't want him.
But I mean, if they're, you assume they're sticking with 3-4. You assume they want to stick with the same terminology, whatever. So we're not completely starting from scratch. You know, I could see them shifting Mike Pettin in. He's already in house.
I think they might if they miss out on these top names, but if they're already talking about two others, whatever, they might give him a shot too, just because he's in house and he has history. But
I thought it was really interesting at the end of the season, though, how they were taking Danielle Hunter from a stand-up position and using him with his hands in the grass towards the end. I don't know if that was some sort of way to. I know that you want to get the most out of your players, but was that admitting that the scheme wasn't quite working for him, or how should we look at that?
Well, here's my thought on the pressure up front. Even though the sacks were, good to start, and then it seemed like Daniil and Zadarius kind of, fizzled out a little bit the second half of the year.
Zadarius came out hot.
He did. He came out really hot. And the pressures were there by the numbers. It's the middle of the field and the secondary that I have the most concern with. I'm not even worried. We have great personnel as far as the big boys go. It's those linebackers and those corners that really concern me.
How much of a conspiracy do you want to go on that one? I mean, it is an admission of sorts that, like, hey, maybe he wasn't quite working the way we were using him before. It's also interesting because you put it on tape at the end of the season for teams running a 4-3 defense looking for an end that, hey, Danielle Hunter can still do this and still be effective. You can trade for him if you want to. It's a possibility. I
don't see Kwesi being the kind of GM that would turn away any inquiry. he would probably look into as many of them as possible and evaluate them as long as they were, honest, not terrible offers.
Right.
That's what I like. That's my favorite part about this guy so far that we've learned is what you just said, Adam, is he approaches it with a very even keel. He's not super emotional. It's not like we have Jerry Jones running the team like the Cowboys do. We have a guy in place who's going to methodically and mathematically find a purpose. That's what he said in his intro, right? He's like, we're going to do everything with a purpose.
But keep in mind, the Vikings already traded some picks when they got Hawkinson, and they traded for Mullins give away their seventh.
Mhm.
So the Vikings walk into this draft and they don't have as much ammunition as they normally would.
Correct. If you like myself and you started toying around with PFF's mock draft simulator after that first round pick, there's a little gap between the next one. So I expect to see them trying to get value out of players that they may trade or move around in the draft like they did last year to acquire more picks to get more of those blue chip players in the second round, because right now they don't have a second round pick to my knowledge.
Now, do you have a preference as far as what you're looking for a defensive coordinator? Would you rather have an older, more experienced person at the helm, or would you like someone a little more younger and maybe more creative?
I want to go young.
Yeah. Yep. I think you go young. You want someone who's proven.
I think someone younger would probably fit better with the locker room dynamic of this team.
Yeah, it matches the energy of your head coach. I don't think you want the crusty old grizzled veteran route.
Well, look here's a point to that too, Kyle. Look at the younger teams in the league that had success this year. Mike Daniels down in Miami. That dude looks younger than you and me, and he's leading the team, right? D'Amico Ryans he's out in San Francisco. They're going to the championship game. He's going to be a head coach next year. It looks like. Mm-hmm. You can have these defensive-minded guys, and they could be in their late 30s, early 40s. Go for it.
Yeah, why not?
Because for my take, and I could be completely wrong, and this is just a bold out there assumption that has nothing to do with anything, but some of the older guys seem to get set in their ways, like Zimmer did and Gone-atello and blah, blah, blah. But I feel like the younger guys, as a defensive mind, can also grasp and kind of push to. They are born into the newer pass-happy league because they've been around it more frequently. Whereas some of the older guys like Mike Tomlin, he'll never have a losing season, but they haven't gotten their offensive line right in 10 years, and they haven't done anything in forever. But they're historied, veteran coaches. It's like, yeah, but Joe Burrow.
I've always wondered on some of the younger coaches. It's like, they all grew up playing Madden and like that shit. And it's like, you just plug and play and you get you get the best players, and you really don't have a scheme and stuff. Is that how much that influences just like decisions that they would go on to make like later in their coaching careers? I don't know. That would be an interesting question to ask someone.
I guess what I was trying to say to your point is like, I feel like they're slightly more in tune with how the game is developed. And there are other people they could argue with, like, look at Andy Reid. He's doing it now and he's however old he is, blah, blah, blah. But Pete Carroll's, he had a fantastic year, but I want to see the fresher, more youthful movement, but really not even for that. I just want to see a team, the best defense in recent years where I want to see players play like a team was that 2020 Buccaneers defense. By God, they were brutal. I mean, they're physical. They would beat you up, and they swarmed the ball everywhere. And I love that. I love the attitude. I want that on the Vikings. Bring that back.
Hire me a coordinator who has the ability to swallow the ego. If things are not working, hey, we're going to make a change, and we're going to make an actual change.
Right.
That's pretty much what I'm looking for.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
We'll keep you guys updated if any trades happen, if any of the draft stuff changes, blah, blah. Obviously, when they hire someone new in this position, we'll let you know. But that's pretty much it for Vikings front. That's the biggest news. There were, like I said, Twitter had been swirling with a lot of opinions from people like ourselves.
Soon?
Let's get Trey Lance in here. Like, we're not doing that right now.
So how soon do you think the Vikings will have a coordinator hired here? Within a week?
Within 2 weeks.
2 weeks, you think, probably? Yeah.
I'll say within the month. Or not this month, but, I think within a month of time.
Yeah. I think it's going to take longer than what some fans are anticipating. There's not as much of a rush, I don't think, as what the media makes us feel like there is. You know, how many years have we're not even at the Super Bowl and we're already trading players in theory on hiring new coaches and all this stuff. It's like, guys,
I'm
the
seeing some
season-
wild people making up just fantasy trades.
I hate Twitter. I hate it so much. Some
And
kid
then
today
they'll-
was like, "This is how we blow it up.
Who says no?
This is how we blow it up. We're going to get the kid from Florida in the first round. He'll be our new quarterback. We're going to trade JJ. We're going to do this." I'm like, "Go, you're done. I'm not even a penalty box. You're kicked out of the game. Give me your controller. You're done." Like, we're not doing that. But
I saw one that was like Kirk Cousins in a second for Josh Allen. Who says no?
the Buffalo Bills.
So I replied. I said the Jacksonville Jaguars. They already got Trevor Lawrence.
The same thing there too. Someone said, "Well, we'll trade Cook to Buffalo," and I'm like, "They literally drafted his brother, you moron." They're not taking him. Plus, Devin Singletary had the best year he's had in years. They're not going to do that. They just make up this stuff just because they can say it, and nobody's going to filter it. But also on the flip side, for offensive coordinator, Wes Phillips was requested by the Chargers to be their new offensive coordinator, and he said he's going to stick with the Vikings. So that's a good sign. I like that a lot.
If it had been a promotion, it likely would have been more enticing, but a lateral move just isn't as appealing, especially when you're settled in and familiar.
Yeah, and it's cool to have like Kevin O'Connell picking him to come over. I like that loyalty that says, no, I'll roll with you guys. We got something good here. Who doesn't want to work with Justin Jefferson? Yeah. And now TJ Hawkins. I mean, you got some weapons, so why not?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say who doesn't want to work with Kirk Cousins. I was going to say probably Stephon Diggs, according to what I heard.
Well, that's a good transition too, Adam. You got two in a row. Let's talk about the divisional round this weekend because, man, some good games this weekend. So
and some one so great game.
Well, we can talk about that one. Yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles handed out another 38-7 beatdown. Thank God it wasn't of the Vikings again. The Giants, if you want to call the Vikings frauds, the Giants are bigger frauds. You're welcome, New York Giant fans, for playing the worst defense you could have played in the playoffs and getting your first playoff win in however long. 38-7, Philadelphia Eagles manhandled the Giants. So they will be hosting the San Francisco 49ers, who beat the Dallas Cowboys yesterday. Brock Purdy didn't play his best game, but he still looked good. George Kittle is incredible. I forgot until yesterday, and I don't know why, because shame on me, but I was like, oh, yeah, they picked up Christian McCaffrey in the middle of the season. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
They're really good.
And they still got Debo, who can get some dynamic stuff done.
And Ayuk's a good receiver. I'm like,
we can argue that one a little bit.
They can do whatever they want, pretty much. It's crazy. San Francisco will travel this weekend to Philadelphia for the NFC Championship.
Oh, that game's going to be so much fun.
I think it's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be really fun.
Only 3 football games left this year. 4 if you count the flag football game at the Pro Bowl.
we don't.
Yeah. The Buffalo Bills on a snowy day in Buffalo lost. They are out of the playoffs. They lost to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals looked in control from the very first snap they got in that game. Wasn't
How
really
much
close.
did you laugh when Joe Burrow said you better issue those refunds?
Oh, I loved it. That dude, I haven't seen a young quarterback in our age that has flirted the line with cocky and confident so well than that kid. He's got it. Stephon Diggs threw a tantrum. It was all over Twitter.
I did see a hilarious meme of it was someone standing, inside a house looking out the window. I think it was a SpongeBob meme. And 2 people outside playing, and inside is Justin Jefferson looking out the window, and then there's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase out there playing.
Oh, don't make it a thing. I don't want to talk about it.
Don't if you don't speak it out loud, it won't happen.
I've already seen it. It exists.
Oh.
But yeah, Stephon Diggs, another diva moment. Made me like him less than I already did. I want to root for him, but you can't pitch a fit because your team keeps losing, man. You just got to roll with them. You left one team because of the scheme, because you didn't want to be on a run first team. You got your boy wonder at quarterback. Like, it doesn't get much better than that unless you're just going to force your way to the Bengals next year. And if he does that or goes to Kansas City, he will be the Kevin Durant of the NFL, and I will actively root against him. So I'm not gonna like too much more of Stephon Diggs if he keeps acting like this. Which I get it. You're upset, but it's 3 years
I-
in a row since he's left Minnesota that he's had an early playoff exit, and I'm like,
He is an excellent player on the field who's a lot of fun to watch that I have a hard time rooting for now.
Clifford, you are correct. Eagles fans are the trashiest humans of the NFL fan base.
So recently, an Architectural Digest put together a list of the ugliest buildings in the world, and the ugliest stadium apparently is US Bank Stadium,
which I don't understand because the Washington FedEx Field or whatever still exists.
Atlanta has a dome that looks like a butthole.
Yeah, but it's a fancy butthole.
I don't get it. I've been there, and yeah, it's a weird shape. I get it, but do they not understand why it's the shape it is?
I mean, it's literally in the name of the team. It's you can't spell these things out for certain people. It's so frustrating.
It's so cool. Like when you first come up and you see it coming out of nowhere. Like it's such a neat structure, and you stand.
The only thing that's really poorly designed about it is the entrance. How you have to go like over the land bridge and then down and around. That's stupid.
Yeah, it's a little awkward.
But I love that stadium because, to my knowledge, I don't think any other stadium has this. Half of it, the glass you can see through, so you get natural light in, and the other is, I don't know if it's just wood or metal or whatever, but it's so cool because you can still let natural light in one of the coldest places to play in the league, in the country. You can still get that natural light. And I know that in the earlier games in September, they can open the doors, the 100-foot tall doors, and get a breeze in there. It's cool.
Yeah, it's really neat.
The Miami sidelines have natural light.
Yeah, they do. They got a natural sauna down there too. That's crazy.
I was hearing about that advantage that they have by having their home sideline in the shade.
Yeah, I remember when we played them week 5, and they were talking about the temperature difference too, because it stays warm down there a lot longer. That's crazy. Super humid. Nicole says nothing worse than the Bengal Stadium. Yeah, we should do like the worst stadiums. We should talk about those. I live 30 minutes from the Panther Stadium. That thing needs to be torn down. It's pretty old.
I've seen some videos. There's a reason the Bears are getting a new stadium. It's because it's falling apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and their offensive line. Yeah. Yeah, Vikings Jerome says Diggs is a big whiner. Yeah, he has his moments. He definitely lives up to that.
He's got that golden smile that people can't hate him for after.
He's great with the fans. I'll give him that. And he has got an arm on him. He threw to the upper deck before warm-ups the other day. He's got a little bit of a cannon on him. Just hate to see that in the moment. Like, we know he's frustrated, but I hope he's not going to pull that thing where he tries to get out of a situation again, that's more common in our era, and the younger players is trying to chase a ring. But I don't know. I can't fault the guy. I try to see both sides, but I did not like that in the heat of the moment, you need to be there for your teammates, even in the bad times. And when you leave, it kind of looks selfish, because the report was he was out of the locker room before the coaches even got back there. And I think their running back had to bring him back in. It was like, no, you got to come back in here. And he left immediately again. So we'll see. The last game we haven't talked about yet was Kansas City and Jacksonville. That was a close game. Patrick Mahomes has a nasty ankle sprain. That'll be something to watch playing against the Bengals. The Bengals have gotten the better of the Chiefs the last 3 meetings, including last year in the postseason. So we'll see.
The evolution of Trevor Lawrence is interesting because I don't watch a lot of Jaguars games, so to see him play the way he did kind of opened my eyes a little bit.
I think that coaching change was everything he needed to. And I'm not saying that this was the sole reason, but remember with Doug Peterson, he helped coach Nick Foles to a Super Bowl MVP. He was a part of that. We obviously know Trevor Lawrence is much better prospect than Nick Foles. So
there's always that thought in the back of my head, though, what the AFC playoffs would look like if Tua had been healthy enough to play.
Oh, they would have given the Bills a run for their money. I believe it. Shit, Skylar Thompson was out there giving him everything he had. It was a close game. Too cool for Minnesota. Yeah. We've seen him with long hair his whole, career. I think he would look really awkward with a short haircut.
I still remember when Kellen Mond, before he got drafted, when he had that tweet about Minnesota sucks.
And the irony of that and how that didn't work out.
Isn't he in Buffalo now, or where is he?
I thought he was with the Browns.
Cleveland?
That's probably right.
Yeah, I think the Browns snagged him after we got rid of him. Not particularly. we named an episode after that. Was so funny. Mike Zimmer knows he's going to get canned. He's like, "You want to see anything from Kellen Mond?" He's like, "No, not particularly."
It turns out, he wasn't wrong.
He's not going to do anything. He'll be a backup in the league for a while, but
yeah.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah, the stage is set for the championship games. Kansas City will host the Bengals, and the Philadelphia Eagles will host the San Francisco 49ers. I think these are going to be close games.
Are both those games on Sunday?
Yes, I believe so.
Good, because the Royal Rumble is Saturday.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
And tonight is Raw 30, the 30th anniversary of Monday Night Raw.
We have
probably be a bunch of old farts on there.
I love it. That's a good follow on Twitter. I send to you guys. I know I send it to Kyle sometimes too. I follow like the 90s and the 2000s WWE Twitter, and you just get all these nostalgia waves coming in from like, oh, I remember watching that. That's kind of cool. I saw one yesterday. It was however many years ago, Shawn Michaels won the Royal Rumble, and he was contestant number 1 on there. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Boy, some of that stuff from the Attitude Era doesn't hold up now well at all.
I've been going back and rewatching all the old Royal Rumbles, and it's really interesting because, you're skipping a year at a time through the WWE by doing that. And yeah, it changes like really drastically when you hit the
Nicole always watch for player appearances for signings because we had a Raw coming to St. Paul while I was there, and The Miz was doing an autograph signing at Cricket Wireless. He's one of the ones that they always have in there. It's either him, Sheamus, or Natalia. They kind of alternate them. And I got a really cool autographed sign by The Miz and got my picture taken with him. A real cool guy.
I would have loved that to meet pro wrestlers when I was younger. That's awesome.
See, the problem is that I don't think WWE fans know who Jay White is.
Never heard of this person until right now.
Bullet Club huge in New Japan.
Of course, I haven't watched pro wrestling, like followed it for years and years, but it's cool. Nicole says, thank you. Ah. We try to do what we can here in the other areas.
I have an update on Kellen Mond because I was wondering, well, what's he doing in Cleveland? Here's a quote from their offensive coordinator about Kellen Mond. He said, improvement. He really has. There was a little
nice.
Good
so,
for him.
He's improved a little bit.
That's got to be awkward too. I forgot the massage therapist king is over there starting for them, and he won't be out of there for a long time.
No, they locked him down. Lots of bucks.
Speaking of lockdown and money and all that fun stuff, Lamar Jackson reportedly turned down $133 guaranteed $1 million. So that's kind of crazy.
How could you? How?
At some point, though, it's got to be less about money and a little bit more about respect when you have the money. And he might not just feel respected there anymore.
I think what sucks for him is this was kind of that contract year because he was talking. This was a topic a year ago going into this past season, but he got hurt, and that is going to loom over his head and kind of hurt his stock a little bit. And I think he's a great player. Obviously, he won an MVP a couple of years ago, but those injuries will pile up. People would get scared to give you all this money, and it sucks because I fully believe they would have beat the Bengals if he was fully healthy and played that game.
They would have, but he wasn't.
That's a good point.
I mean,
that's a good point.
If you're a GM, you just kind of answered your own question right there.
That's the thing too that he's thought about because he's a smart player and a smart guy, but not every team has a defense that is that brutal and like gritty. And Baltimore, I mean, that's been their identity forever was, okay, we're going to run the ball very well, and also our defense is going to punch you straight in the mouth for a whole hour. So figure that out. You got to know if you go somewhere else, it's probably not going to be that good. So they can get him a couple more weapons. He's got a all-world tight end, though. He's got some weapons. The running game's okay.
But
That's
Baltimore
crazy,
can't be thinking that it can be okay with Tyler Huntley going forward.
Absolutely
They can't
not.
think that.
Absolutely not. That's such a good point.
It's such a bad time to try to hunt down a quarterback, too, because you're going to end up paying a lot or trading so many assets to try to roll the dice on a on a rookie.
Well, it's crazy too. We're talking about quarterbacks. I know I reference Colin Cowherd on the show a lot. I was watching him today, and he's ripping Dak Prescott apart. And he's like, I would take phone calls. He's like, you're not winning anything with him. He's like,
I don't know if you guys follow Stephen A, but Stephen A was having a blast.
I searched for it last night about an hour after the game. I was waiting for that slow turn and just I love how much he pisses off the Cowboy fan base. It's so good. So
Did
funny.
you watch that final play yet, Adam?
I did. I saw it on Twitter.
It's
Thoughts? What's your opinion on that?
I don't know what they were trying to do.
I think they were trying to complete a pass to the receiver who was going to lateral it back to Elliott. I think.
They shouldn't have done that, though, because the kid that got the ball, he's their returner. And all game, he was so close to breaking one to get a touchdown. And that would have changed the landscape of that game significantly. He's very fast. But you have two linemen over here all the way on the numbers and two linemen over here on the numbers. They're like,
Zeke ain't fast enough to get behind those blockers on the sidelines.
no.
So I'm not sure what the plan is here.
Had they been able to run that play without the other team taking a timeout, you might have caught him off guard and got something out of it. But as soon as they took a timeout to regroup and look at what they're doing, I couldn't believe that Dallas came back out in that same formation. It's like, why?
This is a weird dynamic too, because Dak had, I think, the most turnovers this year. I think him and Josh Allen had the most, and they're both in the divisional round. Like, there's that rocking of the boat. Like, do we get rid of him? Is he terrible? Or do we look at the circumstance? These teams won double-digit games with these guys at quarterback. So it's like, it's that weird thing we always talk about on the show. Well, if you get rid of him, who's better?
Because not every trick play can be the Philly special.
I tell you what,
It's true.
I'm giving a game ball to the Dallas Cowboys for that play because nobody is talking about Kirk Cousins throwing that pass short on 4th down anymore after that shit.
That's a good point. Oh, it's such a good point.
Did you see the Cowboys kind of slammed Dak on their social media?
Oh, yeah. They showed a picture of him and everything,
say?
linked to an article and everything. That was funny.
They're talking
hung
about
him out to dry.
Despite Dak Prescott throwing 2 interceptions, and it's like, wow. Nothing like just calling out your quarterback.
And if I'm him and his agent, I'd be like, you can go ahead and find me a new team. Somebody will pay me because I'm not that bad. He has leverage in that situation for sure. Bradbury over Zeke. He's got hands too. Remember that play last year in Green Bay?
The problem is right now the Vikings, who is their center right now? If the season were to start today. Bradbury's gone. Schlottman's gone.
This is the thing that frustrates me with this new season.
Chris Reed,
around.
right?
Yeah. That's not good. That's the thing that frustrates me with this season coming up is we thought with this team and the way it was and the magic and all these close wins, like maybe we'll get close to a Super Bowl. Now that the dust has settled and, it's 8 a.m. the next day and you see who you wake up next to, you're like, damn, there's a lot more that we have to fix than we really thought. Because as much as we were talking about the defense earlier and all of these pieces, that interior O-line could absolutely get a revamp.
Chris Reed definitely is a struggler.
Nobody in that interior O-line is safe, in my opinion. And I like Ezra Cleveland. He's the best of the three. But outside of the 2 tackles, I'm definitely looking around to replace those
At the end of the day, I still think you bring Bradbury back because he played well enough, and that's not high enough on my totem pole of issues.
Well, Bradbury's already expressed interest in returning, so they might be able to bring him back a little bit on the cheap, which that'd be fantastic. If nothing, that provides a floor for the center position.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've talked about on the show quite a bit, if you can't get a superstar, you got to at least raise the floor because you can't have the floor of the position being Chris Reed.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
With that in mind, too, let's say Bradbury does come back because that does seem like a good possibility. The majority, I would say, would lean to that. Ed Ingram's not going off of the team, but are you looking to upgrade at right guard or are you trying to ride it out with him as your starter for another year?
He's young enough that I think you could give him another opportunity to grow and develop as a blocker. But, I
think so, too. I think you're looking at a cheap backup veteran that you can bring in to help push him a little bit.
It's nothing to bring some competition.
You're right, some competition, but I still think he's your starter.
Jonathan says, Ingram can get some weight and quit stepping on Kirk Cousins next year.
Yeah, Ingram was so scared to get pushed backwards that he was taking that initial first step back really far because he thought he was going to get shoved. And maybe with some offseason conditioning and weight training, that can change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the coaching staff is going to get with him and work on a lot of this stuff.
Speaking of our line, we'll keep you updated too. It's going to be a long road to recovery, but Brian O'Neill, we forget about that too with the partially torn Achilles. That's a nasty injury. So
yeah,
hopefully he'll be ready to go by the season.
He went in for surgery pretty quick though, right?
I don't remember.
If I remember right, I think it was the next day, or it was really, really quick if I remember right.
I just remember that we said Oli Udo was starting. I'm like, well, there's our season. Shit.
And honestly,
Udo
did
that right.
He didn't play bad.
It turns out that, sometimes that was the problem with some of the Spielman era players. He was a backup who got thrust into a starting position, but he's still a good backup. And you can always have a role for players like that on your team. It's just evaluating talent correctly and putting them in positions to succeed.
I liked the tape that I saw on Wyatt Davis back in the day, but man, he did not transition well to the NFL.
Yeah, last we remember he was in New Orleans. I don't know if he's still there.
Is he still even in the league? I don't know. Let me look.
That's a good point you guys were making about backups playing when they need to come in temporarily. It's like your closers for the MLB.
He's on the Giants.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Jonathan, if that's a pun, I hate you.
We'll see. Let us know. I know it lags for a second.
Achilles heel. Boo.
But yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much all we've got to talk about. There's nothing too crazy going on. Gearing up to see who's going to play in the Super Bowl. I'm excited to watch these games. That was the big news for the Vikings. Ed Donatel is gone, and they are actively searching right now. We'll obviously make a post about it.
I believe I read that Dalvin Cook has been named an alternate for the Pro Bowl.
Nice. Okay.
Not sure how that happened, but I guess it did.
Also, the Vikings have been in early talks with Justin Jefferson and his representation about an extension. So we'll keep you up to date on that as well when that comes around. We kind of figured that was going to be something that was discussed this year, but Justin Jefferson staying a Viking.
Nice to get that taken care of so that
they definitely have to figure some other things out with his salary cap, though. I mean, they've got players that they just can't pay what they've got coming up.
Let's talk about it. We had it earlier. I'm glad you brought that up. The Adam Thielen drama on the internet is unreal. If you're one of those people that goes after a player's wife, you need to deactivate your account. Yeah. Don't do that. And I'm not pointing fingers at Caitlin. I'm not. She was posting some cryptic stuff, but that is her right to do that. And Adam's had a unique career for this team. And I mean, he's Mr. Minnesota by all accounts. So if this is the end, they're going to be emotional about it, but they have done nothing in the way of anything negative for themselves, for the team, for the community. So don't go after the players' wives. End of story. Don't do that.
I still think that Thielen's back never quite healed properly, and I think that might be a major issue as to why he didn't contribute up to the level that a lot of fans thought.
I think he can still play. I just don't know what role he wants to be willing to take, and I think he knows as well that he's not going to be playing on that same contract. It's going to have to be for a lesser number, but I hope
I
he
wouldn't
stays
be shocked
with
to
Minnesota.
see Kirk sign on for another year, even after through 2024, in order to lower that cap hit in 23. So yeah, I would watch for that because I do believe that the Vikings coaching staff and front office both really believe in Kirk and think they can win with him. So yeah, I mean you and they aren't prepared to move on from Kirk yet. They don't have anyone behind him that they can really feel like, okay, this is our next guy.
Yeah, I still think you got another couple more seasons worth of prime Kirk. Well, that you can maximize around him. I don't care. Salary cap is half made up. I'm really not that worried about it. They'll figure it out. They'll get players
they'll
paid.
end up converting some money to bonuses, and it'll work out.
Right. Yep.
Well, let's ask one question before we wrap up on the show. Do you guys think at any point in the draft this year, and I know it affects because they lost some picks with some trades, You think at any point in the draft this year coming up in a couple months that they take a quarterback?
No, not this year.
Depending on how the board falls. I mean, you got to take the person that's the highest on your board. And if you've got a quarterback the highest on your board, you take that quarterback.
Yeah, but if someone's fallen and they end up in a position where they would be available for the Vikings.
But this team still needs to look at some corners, some pass rushers, some offensive linemen, possibly a new running back.
I want to go into this, but because we can't before free agency, it's moot. I want to know, like, once we get to that point and some people leave, some people come in, we can start doing that predicting of, all right, who are they taking? What's their first pick going to be?
I also think Kyle was talking about some point this offseason doing positional reviews and conversations.
Yes, I do want to do that. I want to do the positional breakdown where we're like, hey, this week we're going to talk quarterbacks, and next week will be wide receiver and
that sounds great. We could really dive into those topics.
We should probably wait until at least free agency, the boom comes in.
Until after the Super Bowl,
Yeah, that's kind of what I was waiting for that stuff.
That'll be fun.
Last year we skipped an awards show. Are we going to skip it this year too?
No, we can do that.
We should do one of those. Maybe we should do that for next week.
Yeah, we can do that next week for sure. We got nothing much to talk about in the way of Viking land. Need the defense, secondary, and O-line. Not sure we can get that. I mean, you can get all of them. I just don't know how many are going to be quality and just going to start right away. But
there are still a lot of needs. I mean, unless they can sign back a center, Minnesota will be drafting a center unless they re-sign Garrett Bradbury. Because I don't think they'd move forward with Austin Schlottman, who wasn't terrible this year. He was serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
but I don't think you want to go forward with him.
I'm glad that Greg Joseph didn't have the Brett Maher woes. That dude was on. He was about to have to take a Greyhound bus back to Dallas from Northern California. Oh, my goodness. I'm glad we don't have those woes, at least not this year. Whew.
But also, I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota looks and brings in an undrafted free agent to compete at kicker.
I can definitely see that.
Too many extra points and things that he shouldn't have throughout the year.
I'm glad
it didn't look like it was an issue with the holding or the long snapping, because heck, something must be going good at the long snapping if he is an all-pro.
That's right. Well, what's cool about that is, in a negative that we can say something cool about is it was spotty from time to time. I think Brett Maher missed 7 of 6 in a row for extra points and in the postseason. So thank God that didn't happen. We would have had another Daniel Carlson situation where the kicker is being released now. But I just thought I'd bring that up too. That was pretty crazy. I forgot about that over the last 2 weeks.
Minnesota didn't make a ton of major adjustments during the season. The only real major change they made was that trade for Hawkinson, and I see what they were looking at there for future potential, and it does likely signal that Irv will be gone. As much as some people might want to, I liked Irv. I liked what he could have brought to the table. He never really got a chance to show himself, and I don't think he will until he's healthy, maybe somewhere else. If he can stay healthy somewhere else, I don't know.
Future Carolina Panther, Irv Smith.
Yeah, it didn't quite work out with him. I don't think that's one of those no one's at fault. You can't help when you get hurt. You have some bad luck. Wish him the best. Not in Minnesota, though.
Let's end the show with an NFL scope question. Outside of the Minnesota Vikings, what is the biggest offseason story you're looking forward to hearing about, other than Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. I don't care about anything else. I want to know where they're going.
I want to see this Derek Carr situation unfold, because Carr could say, I'm not getting traded, because he has a no-trade clause, so he could deny every trade and to force the Raiders to cut him. Then he could sign wherever he wanted to go.
That really sucks for him, too, because if you get one season with your former college teammate who was just arguably the best receiver in the league, and then it's like, well, we're done with you. Like, that has to hurt a lot.
But there are a lot of teams that would be begging for him. I mean, the Jets would probably love to have him. Carolina, probably knocking at the door.
Shoot, for as much jock riding as everybody was doing on Daniel Jones, if he went to New York, they'd immediately be better at quarterback. Either
I'm
one of the New York
curious.
teams.
I'm curious to see what happens in Denver. Russell Wilson's not going anywhere.
No.
New ownership. Was it a fluke that happened with him? Bad coaching? What's gonna happen out there? That'll be an interesting story to watch.
For sure.
Cliff agrees with you, Mr.
Yeah.
West.
Because I was always a really big fan of Russell Wilson. I enjoyed him. He was one of my favorite quarterbacks, and man, he really fell off this year.
I still feel kind of good that I kind of predicted that he wasn't going to do well this year.
Yeah.
You did call that. I would blame coaching at least 50% on that. If you are the offensive coordinator for Aaron Rodgers, I mean, you and I could pull Madden plays out and tell these guys to run these routes.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to look good. So I don't know that he was very qualified to be a coach, but the other part of that rests on Russell's shoulders because they have a running game. They have good receivers. So
about the division, do you think the Bears will try to go after a top wide receiver in the draft, or do you think they'll try to spend some money to pick up? I don't even know who the wide receivers are that are entering free agency.
Stephon Diggs.
Could you imagine
Adams, Chicago
Justin
Bears.
Fields throwing to Diggs? That would be something. But yeah, they traded for Chase Claypool, and then Bears fans were always shoving it in our face. It's like, we have a guy that's better than Adam Thielen. So I mean, they're saying that they need an offensive line and that they need receivers, but they need defense too. That Bears squad needs a lot of help.
Tell you how bad it was there. They were hurting to get draft picks, and it worked for them for compensation. But Roquan Smith leaves, goes to Baltimore. He boosted them from the 20s in some defensive stat all the way to like number 2.
Oh.
So he is very good. So they're hurting there too. So it's like, okay, you got capital.
That should give us hope as Vikings fans that, like, if you're smart in the offseason, 1 or 2 players can help turn this defense around.
I'm telling you, Buffalo missing out on Von Miller, he would have been a game changer yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Good players like that can wreck games if they fit everything well and everything meshes together. But
well, we went almost an hour with no Vikings game going on and still had a pretty good time. So, I mean, I'm really thankful for everyone who joined us in chat. We love having you guys here, and hopefully we can do this again next week. I am a bit slow on uploading these shows to Podomatic and iTunes and Stitcher and all that, so I usually forget on Tuesdays, so maybe I hope to have it up on Wednesday if you guys listen wherever podcasts are found, because that's usually when I do it because I have a terrible memory. But we'll be back next week with some kind of show about something. And in the meantime, stay classy, Minnesota.